Hello. Welcome to Cineverm, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Tony.
Oh my god. My name is David. And I didn't know what was going on there for the first 10 seconds.
Hello, welcome to Cineverm, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name's Anthony Renteria, and today I'm joined by David.
Yep.
And if you didn't know, or if you didn't catch that reference, we are discussing the 1980 film The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick and written by Stanley Kubrick and Diane Johnson. And it stars, of course, the infamous Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd. And here is the synopsis. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings of both the past and the future. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and then after our ratings, we will dive into a full spoiler discussion. I guess I have to start here with the initial impression. Man, I have so much to talk about, I'm almost like overwhelmed. But
yeah, bursting at the seams.
Yeah, so I guess just for like a little backstory, to me, this is my first ever Stanley Kubrick watch. This is the first film from this legendary director that I've seen, and wow, it was an experience. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit before we started recording here. I unfortunately watch all these films at home on a really crappy computer monitor, and this was the first time that we've seen a film for the pod that I felt chills. Like, there was literally moments in this film where I got chills because of how grand and epic, and just like the way this film just feels like it's like bigger than life in this very weird way. And even on a computer monitor, it felt like that for me. And it's all just, I guess, the power and the mastery of visuals that Stanley Kubrick has over this art form. Like, it is insane. It's like shocking and stunning. Anyone who even cares about cinematography or filmmaking or visuals or just art. I mean, I think in one of the texts you sent me, like, this is literally every frame is a painting, and it's all like mundane. And it's just so like, well, it's inspiring, it's exciting, and it's just like breathtaking to know that even like a scene of someone just sitting at a desk in a big empty hotel can be like one of the most stunning images. And it's just so like, I can't even like wrap my head around like, why is this beautiful? Like, I feel like I have to like almost like work backwards to try to figure it out. And I can see the like ripple effects of Stanley Kubrick's visuals and eye into every filmmaker since, I guess, when he started and cemented his style. Like, I think I brought up like Ari Aster and Jordan Peele with you, but like, it's just so obvious to me now that everyone has just been ripping at his core elements. One director I didn't bring up that I think is one of my favorites modern is Wes Anderson. And that's something I never I've always wondered, like, what would Wes Anderson do if he made like a serious dramatic film? And I think in a lot of ways it's almost like Stanley Kubrick. Like, it is very precise and like almost mathematical to the point of it's almost psychotic. I mean, I think most people know of the backstory of the filmmaking of this movie and just the general Stanley Kubrick isms that he's known for, taking multiple shots. Famously, this film has a shot that is the Guinness World Records of the most takes of any scene for any movie ever. It was 148 takes for a particular scene that I think we'll discuss in the spoilers. But like, you feel that. Like, I felt that in every image. Like, oh, this is literal perfection. And it's almost mind-boggling as someone who's a fan of cinema and who wants to make films. Like, it feels very intimidating. It's like the biggest flex I have ever seen in my life thus far. Just on the visual side, I definitely see him as a mad genius in the visual department. So I guess that's my just quick initial impressions. Obviously, I was blown away by this film. But I guess I'll ask you, like, you've seen this film before. I think you are familiar with Kubrick. How was this recent watch? How long has it been since the last time you watched it? Any new learnings or experiences?
I think I watched it, it feels like recently, like a couple of years ago, maybe, the last time. And I've seen it, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times. And it seems like this viewing experience was more vivid because I purposely got a good version of it to watch, because I think the first time I watched this movie was for some reason, recorded it on TV, like as a kid, like literally recorded it on a VHS tape to watch it. And it was the TV version. So it was all like edited and low quality and just not good. So yeah, it's weird. That's a really early like movie memory. So it has this bizarre feeling to me. But then this time I'm watching like an HD version, and it was just very immersive. I thought it would be really boring because I've seen it recently and seen it several times before, and I'm really familiar with it. But this time it felt just as exciting and just really engaging, surprisingly. And maybe also because I was watching it through I was thinking what you were going to think about everything, and so I was anticipating things. And also it's one of those movies that I told myself before I started watching it that I wasn't going to write the same insane amount of notes that I always write for these episodes. I told myself I wasn't going to write any notes. I'm just going to watch the movie. But the first like 5 minutes of the movie, I was like, oh my God, I have to write this down so that I can say it on the pod. So yeah, it's one of those movies where it's just, it stimulates your brain as you're watching it. And the more you watch it, the more it does that. And it's famous for that because it's famously one of the most overanalyzed movies of all time. And so I purposely I was really trying to only write things that I've never heard anyone say before or that I noticed for the first time. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, I've seen the documentary Room 237, and I've watched a bunch of, I think I mentioned this YouTube channel on our last episode, but Collative Learning on YouTube. Like, I remember watching his Shining videos because he's one of those people that's obsessed with it and has really dug deep into it frame by frame and connected it to Stanley Kubrick's biography and like all this stuff. So like I'm familiar with all the main major theories and stuff. And one of them did definitely stick out to me this time, that I was gathering data as I was watching it. So we can talk about that. But yeah, I was just generally curious like what your impressions of it were, because I remember I predicted that you weren't really going to like this movie. I just didn't have very high doubt or high hopes that you were going to like this versus all the other ones that we've been watching. But I don't know. It's interesting. I want to hear more about what you really, obviously the visuals you really liked about it, but what about, because one of my notes that I wrote early on in the movie was, oh God, Anthony's going to hate the acting. I made note of that. Yeah. So what did you think in general of the acting, like the non-visual stuff in the movie?
Yeah. So one thing that I really love is I kind of entered this film completely blind. Like obviously I know the hallmarks. I've seen the twin girls in the Twister movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like I've never seen any film essays about it. I've never seen anyone actually do criticism of it. So I'm trying to think like what I actually knew going into the movie. I did read the first 2 chapters of the Shining book about 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, just in comparison, just from the first 2 chapters, I knew of the drama of Stephen King hating this adaptation, and just having watched this movie, and I think this has to do a lot with the performances and the actors. I am totally on the side of Stephen King. Like I think the visuals are a masterpiece, and just off the bat, I mean, this is just one film in. Maybe Kubrick is different in his other works, but he is not a strong, in my opinion, like a narrative, emotional storytelling in the traditional sense storytelling. I think this has way more in line with Eraserhead than I was actually anticipating. Like I literally feel like this is very Lynchian. I don't know if people make that comparison, but I could totally like, I think this is what people feel when they watch Eraserhead is what I felt watching this movie. Because this movie had a little bit more where Eraserhead is way more abstract, but I could feel Kubrick leaning into the abstractness with this film by not explaining things and not having things tie up or make sense.
Didn't I remember my trivia from the Eraserhead episode was that Kubrick made everyone on this film watch Eraserhead. So he was very, very aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny enough, Eraserhead was screened for everyone multiple times. The Exorcist was screened multiple times. And then the third one is a film we just added to our calendar. We replaced it with another movie, Rosemary's Baby. And I can totally feel the influences of Eraserhead in this movie. And then I guess going back to the performances, surprised. So I said all that backstory because I watched the film and then I went into my deep dive of podcasts. I probably listened to like 1,000 well, not 1,000. I probably listened to like 22 podcasts talking about this movie. So I
Oh
think
my
I've
God.
heard like every take there is out there. And good God, there's like how you were saying overanalyzed. I didn't
Yeah.
know the extent of overanalyzation this film has had. I think this is the birth of the type
Film
of
analysis.
movies. Yeah, well, the type of movies, and I think this is one of my main complaints with the horror genre, is I think a lot of people make things into things that aren't real by giving filmmakers credit with ideas because they kind of fit, but they don't really fit. And
Yeah.
I think this film is the beginning of that, if I can claim it to be. Like, there's like you said, that documentary. I think I heard a podcast about the documentary, and it's like there's probably like 40 different takes of what this could be. The Apollo 11. This could be about Native Americans. This could be about X, Y, and Z. And I think like directors like Jordan Peele, and specifically, like I think they saw this film probably at a young age and they ran with it, and it's kind of influenced the way they make movies, whether they do it consciously or not. But it's like the Easter egg in cinema. Like, I don't know if there was another film that did Easter eggs at the level of this movie. And I don't even know if Kubrick, because I even I looked up some interviews with him, and he like just completely dismisses all these takes every time. And even the crew, even like set designers, they've said, well, we picked this jacket because he just wanted a handmade jacket, and we gave him 12 options, and he said that one looked like the best the day of.
Yeah.
So it's like, how
Yeah.
can that be planned? And that goes with like almost every aspect of this film, where he's almost just like this art director, and he's picking the most beautiful objects. And I think he does this not only with what's in the film, but this is something that I heard in a podcast, so this may be incorrect, but this was a very intelligent film critic. So the film score, I did not know that every piece of music you hear in this movie, I think with the exception of maybe one or two, are entirely ripped from other films. And then I was like, whoa, that's kind of insane. I mean, the only other director I've heard that does that is like Tarantino. He'll rip another film score and slap it in his movie. And not only that, but just like learning about Kubrick and hearing about him and how not that he doesn't have original ideas, but he's almost like this, like he just grabs what he likes, and he doesn't care if he offends or if he rips the identity of that thing away. He just like creates this melting pot of concepts and ideas, and then he just, shoots them into your eye. And he does that with music. He does that with these costumes, the sets, the props. It's all meticulous and perfect, but it's all a mash of things that he didn't really create, is what I feel. And I feel that in like all the aspects, but even like most of his career is adapting either a novel or basing on historical events. It's just so interesting that this like mastermind is, known for his genius, but he's also like, I just don't hear a lot of people talk about how he is almost like a not a stealer, robber, or whatever, but he's almost like he just grabs threads from others and then he weaves them into his own form, which is beautiful and unique and is an art into itself. It's just so interesting that I don't know, just hearing all that stuff just made me go in this like, wow, he's not like a literal god. He's just a master. Like he's like a blacksmith in a way, like he gets the elements and he smashes them together, but with the performances.
Or like distills it down into something like I read The Shining too when I was a teenager, the book, and this is just so much different than the source material. So it's like he took it and just got all the juicy general psychological stuff, and he just turned it into like a beautiful Rorschach test, kind of, where it's loose, and the symbolism and imagery is evocative, but it's like loose enough that people can put whatever interpretation they want onto it. So I think that's what he's really good at, is just making things artsy and like loose enough that it gives a rewatch value, because you could just put into it whatever you want, So I don't know, he's really good at that, making things universal and like really instinctual, or like, what can I say, almost like Jungian, kind of like I was watching recently I was watching Diabolique, which is like a French horror film from 1955, and I did not know the connection. I was watching it, and it got near the end where there's a woman walking up towards a typewriter that someone has left, and she's looking at the typewriter, and it's like a guy has just written his name over and over and over again on the paper, and she pulls it out, and it's like a big, like, she's like scared because the guy might be nearby. I don't want to spoil the plot because it is a really good movie, but there's a lot. Also, the score immediately when the movie started, I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, this is like The Shining score," and it made me Google Diabolique and The Shining, and I found a Twitter thread where someone went through, and there were a bunch of other little visual connections and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, things that he took from. He is one of those, but I don't think that devalues it at all.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
it's
not
just
at
there's
all.
certain people that are really good at mashing all those elements together in their head to make something even greater than the sum of its parts.
And that was surprising for me because I just don't see that in cinema that much, like around this time period. Like I don't see a lot of his fellow creators being so free into just taking others' stuff and then making it their own. Like he almost feels like and that's what gave me the Lynchian vibes, is how he grabs all these elements that don't fit and then he makes them weird. Where Lynch is
Yes.
all original and it's all from his brain, and then it
Sure.
still feels like it doesn't fit, but it does. He is just
Yeah.
taking from other people's brains and
Stanley
shoving
Kubrick-
them.
Yeah, there's just like a extra layer that he does where he just takes in all this information and then he lets it like stew in his subconscious and then spits it out. Like I kind of one of those people that thinks maybe this is a little hero worshipy kind of thing or whatever, but I do think that all the little choices like jackets or whatever, anything that was his choice, I feel like is significant, even if he consciously in an interview was just like, oh yeah, whatever, just downplayed it. But I feel like he is the type of person that something about his brain, like subconsciously, once he's focused on a project, like every choice he made fit together and was purposeful.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. That's what I think.
because he is meticulous. I do think he picks the most provocative idea of a thing. Like I don't think he does anything that is not provocative, and I think that's where all these theories come out of. Because he is such he's almost like this like rebel punk kind of thing in like cinema, I guess. Because some of the takes and some of the ideas and theories, they're so crazy. Like it's just so like there's a whole underworld of Shining theorists that that I discovered in my podcast journey. That it got to the point to where I started thinking like, oh yeah, he did shoot the moon landing. Like that makes actual sense. And it's fun. It's so fun. And I think that is like what a lot of modern filmmakers are trying to aspire to and trying to grab onto. Like I said, like Jordan Peele and other filmmakers like Ari Aster who like plant a lot of Easter eggs about their film. But I think what's interesting is like even watching this film, I don't feel like his Easter eggs are so obvious. Like they almost feel like that, where I think the more modern people who are imitating this, they make it too obvious. But
yeah, maybe because they're overthinking it, and whereas Stanley Kubrick maybe wasn't overthinking it that much. He was making the choices, but like just letting his subconscious guide him to make the choices, and not in a afraid way. Where probably a lot of the newer people they're more nervous about how the film is going to be received, so they're a little more insecure than him, maybe. So yeah.
Oh, and just to rapidly answer your question about the acting, I totally went over that. With all the backstory of not knowing anything about this, like I knew Jack Nicholson was in this movie, and I knew it was renowned. I will say for the performances, one person I loved. Well, actually, two people I loved. Okay, so I want you to guess. So out of the three main cast, out of Nicholson, Duvall, and the kid Lloyd, two of them.
The obvious answer is that you didn't like Shelley Duvall. That's what most people say. But I'm guessing you're going against the grain, and you're going to say that you really liked the kid and Shelley Duvall, and you didn't like Jack Nicholson or something.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
This is definitively. It was like, so I watched the movie, mind-blowing experience. The next day, start listening to these podcasts. I was getting irritated at the hate for Duvall. I think this is one of the greatest that I have ever seen in my life. One of the greatest female performances of all time. Like the level of like subtleness that she is delivering, and the level of like emotional insanity that she has to like deliver in the finale and the other high intensity moments. And it's all in her eyes, and the like, what is the word? The interesting features that she has, like the way she looks.
It's a nice way of saying it, yeah.
It's so like stunning to me, because like I would never imagine another actress like this looking like, I've never seen anyone that looks like her in a movie, and it fits and it feels like a real person. And the way, and it makes sense because her eyes are so big to where it's like I immediately sympathize with her. And like she's a
Yeah.
very strong, I mean, like just think about this. Like you have to act against Jack Nicholson, giving probably, this is, I don't know, I haven't seen that many Jack Nicholson movies, but I would argue this is probably like in his Mount Rushmore performances. Like if he dies tomorrow, the clips they're going to show is this movie and then probably 8 Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest and some other movies I don't know about. But like for her to hold her own against him, like that is insane to me because I've never heard of her. I've never seen her. And like, in my opinion, she is outperforming Jack Nicholson in every single scene. Like there was moments where I was like, I just want a movie about her because she is delivering like the energy that Nicholson is delivering without it being cartoony, in my opinion. Like that's what I felt like. Honestly, there was moments in this movie where like one of the like biggest down things that I have to say about this movie is Nicholson's performance. And I don't think it's Nicholson's fault because of Kubrick's insane over 100 takes. I think Nicholson probably like just kept going so far that he went insane. And then he just kept delivering more and more and more. And I mean more like energy to where like it almost felt comedic and it didn't feel real. Like I never once imagined any person would say or do the things that he says and does in this movie. Like it almost felt like a joke where Duvall always felt real and like re-grounded me back. Like when he's screaming, "Here comes Johnny." And I see her face, like her face looks so real and like petrifying horror. And then like I don't know, there was like a weird disconnect between the two that I didn't like. And then just to wrap up my thoughts, the kid, I think that this is just a stellar kid performance.
Yeah, he was really good.
I don't know,
this,
it is so minimal, and I think that's what maybe Kubrick just is a master of getting performances out of children or something. But like I just thought like this is so genius because the kid never he never actually has a huge emotional scene. And like from my digging into the making of this film, the kid thought he was just in a normal family drama movie.
What?
And yeah. And like the cut of the film that he saw was like removed all the horror elements and the blood, and that he didn't even know it was a horror movie until he was like 12 or 13.
That's crazy.
And like just to like it's just so genius because the kid is never overacting, and I think that's what makes it so amazing. Because you have this child that has, you know, a deeper perception of a mystical perception or whatever. Like, of course, he wouldn't overreact because he has seen these things. Like, he's almost like pre-traumatized to a lot of this stuff that we'll get into in the spoilers. But I think his performance was just spectacular. Like, probably one of the best kid performances I've ever seen. Like, and then that little voice that he does. Oh, as soon as he came on screen with that voice, I was like, oh my God, this is... So, like, literally her and him are, like, my Hall of Fame top 10 performances in their categories. Like, Shelley Duvall, one of the best female performances I've ever seen in my life. Danny Lloyd, one of the best kid performances I've seen in my life. And then Jack Nicholson... I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Jack Nicholson. I haven't really seen him in a lot of movies, but I did not like it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the reason that most people, well, this time I was just theorizing as I was watching it, that the reason that most people don't like Shelley Duvall's performance is because of her character, is because the first part of the movie, before she's scared, she's kind of just, she's like, I think it's really on purpose. Like her character is the type of person who talks like really sing-songy and is kind of in denial about her abusive husband and just wants everyone to be happy. And like the perfect scene example of that is when she's talking to the therapist that comes over to look at Danny. And that was the scene when I wrote down, oh God, Anthony's going to hate the acting, but it's like, it's just the way she's talking makes it sound fake, but that's because that's how she is. And a lot of people are like that. I specifically thought about like a lot of Southern ladies specifically, like my mom's age or whatever, that talk like that, where you're just listening to them. And it's something about the Southern accent, which I think she has slightly a Southern accent in this movie. Yeah, it just sounds like that to me, like just that kind of fake way of talking where it's just a polite way of talking, basically. But I think that's why most people think that her acting isn't that good, because that's how she talks throughout most of the movie, is just in a very fake sing-songy way. But it's just because she's like trying to keep the peace around her explosive husband. I think there's a good explanation for that. And then Jack Nicholson, I really love. I'm not the only one that has compared him in this movie to like Jim Carrey. Because there's I don't know if you've seen Have you seen
dude.
the deep fake videos that people have made where they put Jim Carrey's face over his in this movie? It's
That's what
hilarious.
I was gonna say that in the spoiler section. And
Oh,
this is gonna be a hot controversial take.
is that a? s-
I do not think Jack Nicholson should have been in this movie.
Oh no, I love it. Like
I
I like it. I love the contrast because it's
I
funny. Like it adds to the weirdness of this movie that like him and Shelley Duvall are like the
yeah.
opposite acting styles and like
Hmm.
their characters' personalities, and every scene they're like just on totally different levels of acting where
They
he is
live.
just she is like genuinely traumatized because of the behind the scenes stuff that
Yeah.
might have probably happened. And then he is just having the time of his life, just
Yeah.
acting in probably what he thought of as just like a B movie,
Hmm.
horror movie. He is just hamming it up, and
Yeah.
it is perfect. Like it's hilarious. I love it. Every scene, the scene where he is, yeah, I'll keep it vague. I'm not to spoil, but the scene where he's following her up the stairwell and
Hmm.
they're talking to each other is probably. I think I've decided this watch is like in my top 10 favorite movie scenes just
Yeah.
in general of all movies. I love that scene. It's can't
I
help
would
but
agree.
smile. It's hilarious, like his
Yeah.
interactions and how over the top. That and the bar scene, just great.
Oh yeah.
Great work.
It's
But yeah,
very theatrical, where she is very grounded in a way. Like she is in like
well,
your typical
yeah.
horror film, and he is in like I mean he's in like a theater play, a horror
Yeah.
theater play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good though. I don't know how to describe it though, because I would also say it's like really realistic in a weird way, like of just a person that's over the edge and doesn't care
Hmm.
anymore, and he obviously hates his family so much. But yeah, it's great. It's a great
Yeah.
contrast that
See,
just adds to the weirdness of this movie.
and see, we'll get into this more in the spoilers, but this is why I think I don't know if Jim Carrey was a working actor at this time. I can't
Mhm.
remember, but I think Jim Carrey should have been Jack Nicholson's character because Jim Carrey has a natural energy to him, and I think that was one of the things that really like threw me off. Is like Jack Nicholson when he's not acting crazy, he is like super quiet and constrained, and he doesn't show any signs of that energy, where I think like Jim Carrey has that flamboyance that just follows him. So when he gets insane, it wouldn't break my brain and like why is he doing these things. And then also just Jack Nicholson, like I can't like his eyebrows are just so much like I
What?
don't think I
That
don't think
distracted you?
like it's just he has such an evil face. Like this movie
Oh
starts
yeah.
in the initial interview. I'm like, I already know the end of this movie.
I
And like
get you. Yeah.
like obviously I've been spoiled or whatever, but like I think if I would have watched this in a theater in 1980 and he just smiles with his little arch in his eyebrows, I would have been like, no, like no, I'm not ever gonna sympathize with someone with that kind of face.
Yeah, there's a reason he got cast as the Joker in the Tim Burton Batman, but he does have that face.
Yeah, but
But I
I
mean, he can
will.
be sympathetic too. He's in movies where he's a sympathetic character, but
Yeah. Now that
uh,
would have been the interesting challenge. I think is the other like if you were to keep Jack Nicholson, you hold him in. Like I would have loved to seen a more muted version of this, a
mm,
darker version of this. But I do still agree. Like it is a huge performance. Like it is a testament to performances. Like I kind of see it up there with like Travis Bickle in a way. Like Travis Bickle's a very dark, deranged, realistic. This is like the theatrical version of what Bickle would be if he if he was played by Jack Nicholson in a way. So just I guess any final statements, your score.
it's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's one of
Wow.
those movies that's it's not only is it engaging every time I see it and engages my brain, engages my emotions.
Yeah.
It's also an important movie, so I can't deny it the 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Every film person should see this. Every person should probably see it just to witness it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I am pretty close to you. I think this will be the highest rated film of your selections thus far. I think your previous highest was last week's The Exorcist at 7 out of 10.
Uh-huh.
This is I was struggling. It's a 9 out of 10. It's a 9
Yeah, that's fine.
out of 10. Yeah.
So that's
I think
more than enough.
I think if it had a little more story and a little more character, like I think if it would have followed the book just a tad more, like just get into the
Mm-hmm.
like don't like I guess we'll get into spoilers, but it is just like you said, it is an absolute masterpiece of cinema.
Yeah.
Like capital
Yep.
C.
It is art.
When I said in our last episode, like I think our canon should be films that I would be sad that I didn't get to watch before I died. This is a film that I think everyone should watch before they die. Like even if you
Yeah.
don't like movies, if you even if you don't like anything, I think someone would watch this and say, "Yeah, I get it." Yeah, I understand why this is legendary because it has a lot of legendary feats. One thing we didn't bring up, and that I just want to quickly throw out, and we'll get into in the spoilers more, is that this is, and this is something I found out while doing my research. This was only, I think there was 5 films. I think it was the year before the Steadicam was designed and invented, and this is one of the like first 5 films that came out with that used the tool. And this movie uses the Steadicam to an insane level. I mean,
Yep.
like the level of film, like this set the groundwork for every single film after this that uses Steadicam, to the point to where Stanley Kubrick even hired the inventor and the designer of the Steadicam. This film is literally operated by the designer of the Steadicam. He literally had to construct mechanisms to flip the camera upside down to get the camera at a lower angle to do certain scenes that are infamous and famous. And it's just like, oh, God, it's just so insane. Like, and it's still one of the best uses of Steadicam that I've ever seen in my life. And everyone uses it way too much nowadays. And just to see it in this early work, it's mind boggling. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Cinematography, for sure. I mean, we already said every frame of the painting, but yeah, cinematography, oh God, from the opening shot to pretty much the ending. It's great. It's the variety of shots, the dolly shots, like the really long dolly shots through these huge sets. A lot of something I noticed this time, like the behind the shoulder shots, like following people around, were really effective. Makes you feel like you're in it, like you're in a video game almost, just floating behind the main character. It's really cool.
And again, like this would have been the first time that any human being would have seen these shots performed at this level and scale. Because this was literally invented the year prior, and this was the first use case where it was actually being used in the entire, like all those shots that you're talking about, like almost every single shot that's within the hotel is shot with a Steadicam. So everything is fluid, everything is moving, and it's just, it's so immersive. Like it feels like you're in a VR game at times.
Right.
But that is going to conclude our review portion of The Shining. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. And you can visit our website, cineverm.com, for our canon list and written reviews. And if you want, you can also check out my YouTube channel, A Lonely Critic, where I do solo reviews. If you're into video game news, check out my podcast, Headset Chat. And if you're a reader of books, check out my book club podcast, Read, Drink, Talk. And if you're into Let's Plays, check out my gaming channel, A Lonely Gamer, where I am playing through the backwards compatible original Xbox games on YouTube. But now, let's get into the spoilers.
Have you saw Ready Player One?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know how like the Shining scene in that movie, like it's so weird. Like how you were talking about how it's almost like VR experience. It's interesting how they just the character of the set, like of the hotel, is such a iconic character.
Yeah,
just the hotel itself that like it's crazy that how I don't know what it is about it. Yeah, it's so well designed that it's in so many other, like Ready Player One, they had to put a random, has nothing to do with that movie. It just had to put a random scene in the Overlook Hotel. And then the Dr. Sleep, the sequel to this that came out a few years ago, had to have a scene back at the Overlook Hotel. Like it's just such the setting of this movie is so crazily ingrained, and it's almost like one of those places that would show up in people's dreams, like just like a thing that happens to people, that we all have dreams where we're in a place like the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah,
that's the kind of the quality that it has. So I just had to point that out.
Oh my God!
Give a shout out to the set.
Yeah, because we did not talk about the set designs. Holy shit! Yeah, the set. I mean, it's fucking breathtaking. Like, and like you were saying, like there was a moment in this film where Danny's just driving his little tricycle, and like I hadn't seen that scene before, and it felt like I felt chills, feeling like I have seen this before. and it was so
Ah.
weird and insane. And like this movie just made me feel uncomfortable. Like the level of scale
Mm-hmm.
of this hotel. Like these characters would enter a hallway or like the gold room or the dining area or where he even writes. And it just like everything feels so perfect, but it feels so real. Where I think like I wish Helen was on this podcast. You know, she's really into set designs and stuff. But like there's something she always talks about, like it doesn't feel lived in. And there's something about like Kubrick where it feels meticulous and perfect, but it also feels like this has existed forever, to the point to where I was feeling deja vu, like I've seen this before, which I've never seen a hotel like that. I've never been in a place like that, and it feels familiar in this weird, like spooky way. And
It's like the internet kind of meme or whatever of liminal spaces. It's like it's very liminal. I mean, it's an empty hotel, so yeah, it's like
yeah,
a place that you're not meant to stay a long time in a hotel. So the whole setup for this movie is just the setup alone is really eerie, because it's like you're not supposed to spend 6 months in a hotel. That's weird, and I'm sure that would have weird effects. Just living in a hotel room for 6 months. That.
yeah, yeah.
And in a huge empty hotel, that would just by itself would be pretty spooky. So
That brings me to my first question, because like as soon as this movie started, we get an interview between Jack Nicholson's character and the hotel owner about, hey, so you want to work here? You're going to take over this hotel for 6 months while it shuts down because of winter. I immediately paused and I was like, this is my dream. I would fucking do this job.
Oh yeah,
right now,
me too,
right here. All I need is Wi-Fi. If they could guarantee me
Yep.
consistent Wi-Fi for 6 months, I'm
Yep.
telling you right now, this would be. I would not go insane. I would love this. I would love if anyone knows if this is a thing, please let me
I don't
know.
know.
I will work there.
Yeah. I would think, I'm tempted to think that too, but then I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. It says 6 months in a place like that would just bring out all your inner demons. It's cool because it does make you think that, like, yeah, most people in that scenario probably would get a little crazy. Whatever's inside them would come out. It's like a extended meditation retreat or something. It's like, oh God, yeah, better be
but
prepared.
I don't know. I feel like COVID has prepared us. Like this was essentially us all through COVID.
Maybe,
losing our
yeah.
minds just a bit.
I suppose. Yeah, we've all kind of lived through that. Did you notice the impossible window in the office that he gets interviewed in? Did that did that trigger your brain? Did at any time when you were watching this movie, did you think, was it conscious, like where you're like, okay, this hallway is impossible, or like this window doesn't make any sense? Because that's a big thing that people talk about with this movie.
No, I didn't. Well, so what do you mean? What was impossible about the window or the hallways?
There's a lot of scenes where the set is designed in such a way that it doesn't make any sense, like logically, and it creates a really subconscious, like weird effect, because our brain probably picks up on it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I noticed it in a couple of places this time that for sure were, because some people are skeptical about it, like, oh, it's not really, it's just whatever, blah, blah, blah. People are making it up. But no, like when he walks into the office and there's a big bright window behind the boss, it doesn't make any sense because it's a continuous shot of him walking, and you see the long hallway of the hotel in the same direction as where that window would be, and it just doesn't make any sense. And then later in their room, in their kind of quarters, I noticed a shot where there's a long hallway, and then he walks in their room, and they're looking in their room, and then the bathroom window in their bedroom, the bathroom that Shelley Duvall tries to climb out of, like that one doesn't make any sense because in the same direction there's a long hallway like right next to it. So it's like definitely that's a thing, and people have mapped it out. People are insane. People have gone through the movie frame by frame and like tried to map out the hotel and make sense of it, and it doesn't make sense.
Wow. I love that. There is a Japanese director. I haven't seen any of his movies. I know his name. His last name is Ozu.
Yasujiro?
Yeah.
Ozu?
Yeah, Yasujiro Ozu. He is, like, I've seen a film essay. I haven't seen any of his movies. Based on this film essay, he is infamous for constantly moving things around in the frame, shooting things in a way that makes no logical sense, or like you're saying, makes no like technical sense of a place, just for the absolute aesthetic beauty of it. Like he'll literally have a shot where a pot is somewhere and a character somewhere just because he wants that empty space. Another shot, he'll move it closer so it it creates a perfect symmetry. And like I love when directors do that because it's like it's adding to a feeling. And like how you're saying, like I didn't catch this consciously, but I mean, like I said earlier, like subconsciously, this entire movie like had me, I don't know, like it had me in this weird mental state. Like it felt, I felt uncomfortable. And I think it was subconsciously the visuals, but then also just a huge other element that we didn't really get to talk about in the review section. The sound design of this movie is fucking bananas. Like I was not expecting this. Like there was a part where like nothing's even happening. I think it's just the kid and the mom. They're getting a tour of the little cafeteria room where she ends up locking Jack Torrance later in the film. And there's like this buzzing that is like coming in and out. And I like paused the movie and I was like, what the fuck is buzzing in my room? And I like spent 5 minutes, you know, like unconnecting things, checking my phone, turned back on, like I turned the movie back on, watched it for a couple more seconds, and the buzzing's back. And I paused it again, like I'm fucking losing my mind. Like I started like freaking out. I went out to my living room. I went outside my apartment. And then when I came back, I was like, what? Wait, is it the movie? And then like I started the movie and there it was. And I don't know, like it just like the sound design of this movie gets under my skin. There's just something so meticulous about it and like unnerving.
The music, like the voices, like the ghostly voices in the music, like in the opening scene, and they come in later in the movie. That's such a nice touch. And then I had a similar thing in a later scene where there's a heartbeat in the soundtrack. Yeah. And like I didn't consciously notice it until like several minutes after it had started, and then I noticed it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's great! That's crazy! Like that's been going on for like the last 2 minutes, and it's had an effect, you know, like a subconscious effect. I didn't even notice it until now. So that's so cool.
See that is the kind of stuff that I think is very Lynchian, just reminiscent of Eraserhead, because like the Eraserhead soundtrack, the sound design of that was immaculate, and I can just imagine that Kubrick was, you know, inspired by that, and he is imitating in a way by using these weird sounds. I mean, I think even like the simple scene of Danny driving his little tricycle, like that is ingrained in my brain as one of the biggest emotional cinematic moments of my life, and it's just a tricycle driving on hardwood floors, going, and then on carpet, no sound. And just again on the hardwood, and then on carpet, no sound. And I like, I don't know if it was an accident or if it was even on purpose, but just the effect of it, and just randomly in the movie, just in the middle of the movie, and then like you're so close to him again, upside down Steadicam, like to think of that. Like to imagine that with a Steadicam that was meant to stand upright. They had to like literally design a different camera to like flip it upside down so it would actually shoot properly. And then like how close it was to Danny, and then it just staying center frame, and then swinging around the corners. Every corner he turned around, I thought there was going to be a jump scare. I started imagining like demons and shit coming out of doorways, and I was like, why am I imagining demons when this film hasn't really, and this is before all the ghost shit. And it's just like, it's so awesome. Like I just can't imagine watching this movie in a theater. Like I feel like it would really dig into my subconscious, and maybe it's like how you were saying, like that liminal space kind of thing where we're seeing just such a wide field of view. Like we have so much information, so much like sound, and then also like not enough to where our subconscious is feeding into our own fears. Like maybe someone else would imagine like a dog showing up, or, you know, like it's just like it allows your actual perspective fears play into the movie, which is I think why like you and a lot of people resonate with like Eraserhead, where it's like almost you're implying yourself onto this piece of art, which is like the beauty of like actual paintings. Like you see a painting and then you immediately cast yourself on it. And I think with Eraserhead in this film, like it's almost like these films are drawing internal fears out of you with these like sequences. And
because it's abstract enough. Yeah. Oh man, what did you think about, unless you want to, there's something else you want to cover, just the Room 237 stuff, that sequence, since we're talking about kind of iconic sequences. What did you think about that?
Yeah, so that like oh my god, I had so many breakthrough moments in this movie. It's almost like hard to wrap my head around. But yeah, just like just the first person point of view. Like it's so interesting how some movies will cut to like you're in the character's eyes. And it takes me
Yeah.
a minute to understand that we're in a character's eyes. And in
Yeah.
this movie, like as soon as it cut and we see the door and then it kind of starts opening, I immediately knew that I was like in Jack's eyes. And it's just like, I don't know how you do, like how, like, is that just me? Because I just, like, I don't know. It's just like, there's some sort of like weird mastery of editing that Kubrick and his editor did with this movie where like I was always sure whose perspective I was seeing things out of. Like even there's like moments in this movie where we cut from like Jack having a conversation with a ghost bartender to his wife approaching, and I immediately know the ghost is gone before we see it. And
Yeah.
it's like there's like I don't know if that's I don't know. It's just weird because sometimes there's movies that are just like straight up dramas where I'm confused. Like, wait, where are we? What time is it? Like, what is that person still here? Like, are we still in the same place? And in this movie, it just immediately, I guess, because like again,
Intuitive to you.
the
Yeah.
I guess the liminal thing, like it just feels like a dream in a way. Like this whole like this movie kind of descends into like a nightmarish cadence that makes sense, not consciously but subconsciously. Yeah, just that POV shot entering room 237, the slow walk in, the fucking shower, and then this just tall woman walks out. Oh my god! And then like just hearing all the podcasts talk about like, oh, she could represent this, she could represent that, and all these things, and oh my god, it was beautiful. And then the reveal of her
Oh,
just
yeah,
being like
in the mirror.
a zombie, like a wet, like a waterlogged dead corpse. Oh my god! Like I thought it was stunning. What did you think about that?
Her
scene?
laughter,
Yeah.
yeah, like her, I really like her evil witch laugh. I just like how unexplainable it is. Like it's just how out of nowhere it is. It doesn't make sense. Like who is she? Why is she? What happened? She just drowned in the bathtub, and that she's just a ghost that drowned in the bathtub and was just
Yeah.
left there for a while. And like what? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But I think it plays on a lot. This time I was thinking she's like a siren. She's like a mythological. She's like those whatever in mythology, like the sirens that would be kind of like on the ocean, on the rocks, like calling the sailors in, these beautiful women. And then they get
Yeah.
close enough and the ship crashes on the rocks, and they die. It's kind of like that. I think it's playing with that a little bit, that
Yeah.
kind of imagery. And yeah, I don't know. It just makes sense. It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, also like it's just, obviously, I'm sure you listen to the podcast where they're connecting it to the whole like abuse references of like, okay, what does this like represent? Just his guilt, like is he? And I felt bad because this is one of the theories that I was thinking about this time. But I'm like 2 movies in a row we're
Yeah,
talking
okay.
about like a sexual abuse subplot of a child, but
This
it's definitely
is-
there. I mean, it's definitely, well, obviously just abuse, just period. Physical abuse is for 100% there. That's not even like a theory, but I feel like there's more that's being implied just with the way that scene of him being sexually attracted to this lady and her drawing him in, and that's the same room that Danny goes in and comes out abused, And then there's a lot of other things, but the other thing that you might have heard people talking about is Jack reading a Playgirl magazine early in the movie when he's in the hotel lobby. Just the most random prop choice ever. There's an article on the cover of that issue of that magazine about incest. So, I mean, that's just like a really odd choice. Another thing is a connection, like the bear shot that I made this time was like, oh yeah, like him, it shows Jack sitting on the edge of the bed, and Danny comes in and he tells him to come closer and sit on his lap or whatever. And for a second, they're like in the exact same position as the infamous bear costume shot that we see later of a guy, an older man sitting on a bed and someone in a bear costume kind of like giving him fellatio or whatever. And Danny is very, I'm sounding like one of the conspiracy theorists now, but it's like Danny is very connected to bears in the movie. The only other bears that are shown in the movie are connected to Danny. Like he has a big toy bear that he's laying against when the therapist is talking to him about Tony, which also could be read as a manifestation of that abuse that he's that he's gotten from Jack. And then there's another shot with him in the hotel where there's a different bear toy right behind him in the shot. And then at another point, he's wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt, which is just another like a bear. What is Mickey Mouse, a bear or a dog? That actually makes me. He looks like a bear. It's the same shape. Oh my god.
Well, there's a painting in his room that's a bear, and there's a blanket that's a bear. This is the one theory. And this is the only theory I believe, because oh my god! So when I first watched it, this is before I had any podcast research in me. Yeah. I watched the movie, and that scene that you're talking about where Jack has him in the room, the way he pulls him up, because this was probably like one of the most uncomfortable scenes I've ever seen. He is literally centimeters. Their lips are literally centimeters away while he's pulling him up, turning him to the left, and then sitting him on his thigh. Yeah. And they are just like, the way they are meeting eyes, the way Jack Nicholson is looking at him. Because I obviously assume the kid isn't aware he's playing a sexually abused kid. But I think if anyone knows about it, it'd be Jack Nicholson or whatever direction Kubrick gave him. There was a look between them that felt absolutely disgusting to me. And the way he's like touching him, the way he's holding him, the way they're talking, the way Danny is like a kid, just a normal kid in every other scene. And this is the only like scene that I can think of in the movie. I might be wrong. This is the only scene we see Danny and Jack alone. Mm-hmm. And he completely becomes a different person, almost to the point of acting like Tony. He doesn't have the voice of Tony, of like speaking in the, hey, what are you doing? But he speaks very monotonely. Like if you go back and watch that scene, Danny's like, yes, Dad. Yes, Dad. Yeah. Yes, Dad.
Oh, he's obviously like scared of him. Yeah. Yeah. Super and scared and threatened.
Just completely in a state, like in a conversation state of obedience in a very toxic way. Like I had that, like as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is about fucking sexual abuse. Yeah. Like, and of course it is, because I mean Jack Nicholson's character. This is another. I haven't read the book, but in my mind, not only is he, I think he got fired from being a teacher because of maybe something related to this, because he was a teacher. Yeah,
that's true.
His character, if we are believing how his character is, hot-headed, very violent, very outbursty, he totally got fired as a teacher. And it makes sense why he's struggling and he's pissed off. He's trying to find a new job, the only job where he can be alone, not with people, because he has these evil desires, I think. Yeah. If we're going in the movie interpretation of the book, I don't know anything about the book. But so I think that is another element that adds to this theory. And then also like the whole excuse the wife gives about Danny had his papers thrown about. Danny is a very smart kid. Like throughout the entire film, he's very intelligent. He follows every order his mother gives him to a T. And we never see him really rummaging or interacting with the father at all. And I just think that is, and the way she performs it in that scene is like I honestly think, like how you were saying, like that sequence where she runs up the stairs, she sees the bear costume giving head to the other guy. Yeah. I think that is like a direct trauma memory of her running into
seeing
Danny.
That.
Yeah. And I mean, this might be stretching way too far. I can imagine
makes sense.
Her grabbing his arm and pulling it away from the dad. And that's what caused the incident. And then they're like, oh, it was him. He threw my papers around. I'm drunk, whatever.
Well, except for Jack tells the bartender like in detail about that story. So
yeah. Sure.
No, I feel like he did that also, but I like your idea that's like a memory. Yeah, that's like a repressed memory of hers, of what she saw. Man, I have not thought about that specifically.
Because that scene, this was a lot of issues a lot of people in the podcast brought up. They were like, why the hell is she running upstairs when Danny is downstairs, Jack is downstairs? Because we see her exit the room and she runs upstairs.
Well, that whole ending is pretty goofy. Like if you think about it logically, like it doesn't make any sense. It's basically just, I made note of that. It's weird because it's just her running around everywhere in the hotel, seeing a spooky thing, running to a different place, seeing another spooky thing. Like it doesn't. It's really silly if you think about it.
Oh
but
yeah, that's
it makes sense. Like in the moment, it's like whoa, yeah,
yeah. But that's probably one of my that's probably the least like the ending is where the film really falls apart for me. But the reason I think she sees that, because I mean this kind of falls apart because she sees like ghosts and fucking all that kind of shit. But I think the reason she sees that image or those people is because she's immediately in mom mode and she's like, I need to find my kid. Jack is going to hurt him. And then she looks at an open room, and what does she imagine? She plants her trauma of, this is my kid, that's my husband, that's what's going to happen again, kind of thing. You know, like it's almost like I need to save them for that reason. But yeah, I don't know. I that's the only theory I believe, because all the other theories, the Apollo 11 thing, even the Native American thing, like there is, I think the Native American thing is kind of a strong element, but I don't understand how that ties directly with the narrative. Like I think it is a subtext. Like it is obvious he wanted to lead people into thinking about Native American pain and suffering from America. But I don't think that is the central theme, where I think this has so many elements around it. I mean, just with Jack being such a piece of shit father. And then there was another podcast where someone brought up, like, he only smiles at men throughout the whole movie, and he only talks to men throughout the whole movie, and he only laughs with men throughout the whole movie, with the exception of the siren in the room, which you hinted like maybe that was a metaphor for the boy, and like that's his evil desire or whatever, since they both entered the same room. So like I don't know, there's just a lot with that I totally believe, just because of that one scene of how Jack Nicholson picks him up. Like no father picks a kid up like that. Like it was it's gross. And then like 2 movies back to back.
Yeah, I know.
Fucking crazy.
I felt kind of bad. I was like, oh man, yeah, another we're gonna have to talk about. But
I do wonder if this is like, I mean, I don't know anything about Stanley Kubrick's history or upbringing or whatever, but I know like a lot of authors, they'll write these kind of subtexts in their works, and then they are the victims of these kind of situations. So I do wonder if if in some way that's kind of where it's coming from, because I don't think this is a part of the book. Like I would bet $1 million this is not a part of the book, because like in the book the dad is a very, like he is a protagonist through and through. Like he is a pretty, like, because doesn't he like end up burning the hotel down to save his family? Like he's like a decent man who is trying to be commanded by these spirits, which is a metaphor for alcoholism, but he is not an evil person.
Right.
Where I think Kubrick just completely demolished that whole idea and was like, he's a fucking pedophile at this point.
Yeah, I like I just like in that scene where he picks him up, like that you're talking about, where he's just the way he says, I would never do anything to hurt you, in the most threatening way possible. I was like, I mean that's where Jack Nicholson's over the top performance really maybe contributes to the movie. Like it's like you're seeing what he's really feeling at all times. He's not hiding anything very well. Like in earlier scenes, just when he's in the car with his family and the way he's responding to them, it's so obvious, like how much contempt and like hatred is like seething inside of him. So yeah, it's just on the same theory before we move on, is like one moment that I noticed that was really weird that I've never noticed before is when they're touring the hotel for the first time with the family and looking at their room for the first time. And the guy is like, showing them the room, and he's like, oh yes, and over here is a bedroom for your child, and like the camera does this like really long like pan over. It's really weird, like it's a weird camera movement where it like pans from the hallway over to the bedroom, and we can see the bedroom and the open door, and like Jack at the same time he like leans way over, like almost comically, to like look into the bedroom for a second, and then he moves on and he's like, perfect for a child. Like it's really creepy and weird, and I've never noticed that moment before, but this time I was like, that is so weird. Such an odd little moment that's obviously purposeful, but just like adds to this creepy, like the way he looks into Danny's bedroom. It's just really weird. So I had to call that one out. Yeah, but what were you gonna lead us to next?
I was gonna talk about how what was I gonna talk about? Oh my god. How about what was I gonna talk about? You know,
Like
like I
the
keep I keep just starting the sentence and hoping my brain will just fill it in.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, nope.
No, but I guess I can say something of what you said earlier, the Native American theory.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. What is
I get,
that?
I think you put it really well. Like it's not like an A level theory. It's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
B level theory. That's
Yes.
not. It's not like an integral, like exactly like you said, like not a central part of the plot, but it's definitely there. Just we're meant to think about it throughout the
Yeah.
movie because it's so crazy. Like the clothing
Yep.
choices. I was this time it overwhelmed me with how many items of clothing Danny and Wendy wear that are America themed, like America and Native American themed. It's insane. Like almost all of Danny's shirts are America themed. It's either Apollo 11, that's the shirt, Mickey Mouse kicking a football, which is so it's so over the top. It's a joke, you know, like it's so like
Yeah.
what's more American than Mickey Mouse playing football? And
And
then like they're constantly wearing moccasins or like Native American looking boots. And she has a weird yellow jacket that she wears at a certain point that has a teepees on it and like desert. So yeah, it's just crazy. And then the line that he says at the bar, "White man's burden," you know, it's just like a joke
Mhm.
line. But yeah, oh, his metaphor for being sober, like 5 months on the wagon. And you know, earlier they're talking about the families going out during wagon times that end up having to eat each other. So yeah, it's like it's constantly there. It's just like beating you over the head with, well, and obviously all the Native American themes like art in the hotel and
Mhm.
patterns and stuff that is pointed out. It was built on a Native American burial ground. They had
Yep.
to fight off the Indians while they were building it. Like,
Yep.
come on, like it's so. And then he says that one of his tasks when he's describing the job in the job interview is to keep the elements at bay. So I was just like, yeah, this job is almost, it's like a pioneer, you know, it's like
Yeah.
he's like tasked to like go out and like guard the wilderness, you know, from the elements, you know. And so I guess it could also just be like a metaphor, like the Native Americans are sort of, it's a metaphor for those, I guess, like, and this is kind of racist too though, but psychologically it's like the dark places of your psyche that he's trying to fend off, you know, like
Yeah.
he's trying to protect himself. He's trying to like wall himself in and protect himself from those from the darkness outside of the walls, you know,
Yeah.
the savagery outside the walls, and that's his job. But he fails. They break through, and he is compromised. So I just think it's a cool metaphor for, I guess, like psychologically what's happening to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think the theme resonates with the with Jack's character specifically. And then one thing, this is the real reason why I think Danny is wearing an Apollo 11 sweater is
Mhm.
because like you mentioned, there's constant red, white, and blue flags. There's cotton
Yeah,
Mickey Mouse. There's Americana. What is more Americana in the 1980s than an Apollo 11 sweatshirt? Like, I think that is tying directly with the Native American thing. It is about Americans conquering new places, and that
the
is just
frontier.
yeah. It's just the evolvement of that colonialism in a certain way, and I think that's why that sweatshirt is there. I think all the other stuff is just people pushing into weird theories, but yeah, I totally
Mhm.
like the Native American thing, and it does dig into the savagery because the racist
Yeah.
leaning is the Americans are thinking the Native Americans are the savages, and then the reality is the way they took over this land was the true savagery, and this film
Yeah,
is
yeah.
almost like a reflection metaphor of that, with Jack's character specifically being a savage and like lying and telling everyone that he's not a savage, like
Yeah.
faking
It's like
that.
America. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole movie's about history, like Ghost. It's about the huge history of the hotel and all the horrible things that have
Mhm.
happened in this hotel. Like, yeah,
Yep.
it is obviously all about that.
Yep.
And it's the personal, but that's what's so cool about it is that it's multiple levels. It's like the personal, just him, his dark history and the bad things that he has done, and the historical, of America. Like, it's so cool how both of those things are mirrored. It all fits together. it's like a masterful, and none of that is in the book. That's all
Yeah.
that's all Stanley Kubrick.
Yep.
Uh,
Up to the point with even like that the Native American stuff even ties in with caretaker, bartender, whatever person saying like you've always been the caretaker. It's like that generational
yeah,
history lineage is carried on through Jack with his
passing it down.
savagery. Yeah, and the way he acts against people is that savagery. I love that subtext.
Yeah, the bathroom scene, the red bathroom, where he confronts Grady, like even elements of that are just in there just for like the use of the N word, and yeah, the way he talks, first of all, choosing to make him a British person. It's hard to describe, but like all those I feel like also add to the whole, like this is about like America's history, like this is about the dark side. I mean, just bringing that into it, just bringing these other reminders like the N word that absolutely didn't have to be in there, but they threw it in there to give us that mood of like, oh God, this is like sinister. This is about the sinister history of America. But yeah, that scene just visually, like, and how it builds, like, man, like how it starts really innocent and like he confronts him and then like the tables get turned. I love that scene.
That scene, oh my God. And this is what was so weird with Kubrick, in my opinion, because the way he shoots this scene between these two men talking is so dramatic and intense to where, and like Jack is playing very, like he's not amping it up throughout that whole conversation, because he's like
a little bit.
Well, he's digging at that guy. Like his performance is muted to a level to where I wish like the whole film was played like that, because it was so fascinating seeing them go back and forth. Like it almost felt like a boxing match of words. Like with the guy saying like, well, if I may be so bold, sir. Like they're almost like testing how far they can talk to each other before they break. But yeah, the use of like the N-word I found like very off-putting. I was like, wait, what's going on? And then like Jack's reaction to it is completely nonchalant. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
So he's just completely like racist and into this, like, okay, who, what, and oh my God. And then just,
he starts dropping hints though. The more the movie goes on, you're like, oh my God, this guy.
Yep.
The other one that stuck out to me was when he's at the bar talking about Wendy, and he's just like, oh yeah, I got a problem with the sperm bank upstairs. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Completely
this guy,
sexist,
he doesn't just
racist.
hates his wife. Yeah.
Oh my God. And it's so like, yeah, he is just a degrading human, which again, like makes me like really relate to Stephen King's problem with this movie. Like I know just from the first two chapters that Stephen King is very, like he has a very personal connection to the Shining story, because that's something he wrote while he was in the middle of an alcoholic and I think cocaine mainly drug addiction. And like the main character is him. Like it's like it's not even like a hidden subtext. Like it's literally Stephen King. Like he's a writer and he's trying to write this novel and he wants peace and quiet. And then he's like, I would have more time to write if I killed my family. And then he thinks, well, that's a fucked up thought, and that's the whole struggle of the story, with the metaphor of ghosts in a hotel. But
could you? Okay. I have to ask you this as a fellow writer. Like, could a dark part of you kind of relate to, like, for instance, the scene where he's trying to write and Wendy comes in and starts talking to him about the weather, and and that's the first time he like turns to her and gets like really mad, and he does his Jim Carrey acting where he's like, when you hear me typing like this, stay the fuck out, he goes crazy. Could a dark part of you sort of relate to that annoyance?
I mean,
of like when you're like deep in the creative juices?
Not in the moment. But there are times, like, I mean, I went through a divorce and, like, I've gone through a lot of relationships or whatever. But, like, there are times when I think in the past, like, man, maybe I could have spent more time writing. And I can have those, like, dark thoughts. Like, it's their fault, but it's really not.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could ever reach to the level of in the moment feeling that. Because that
maybe I'm the psychopath.
Yeah, maybe. Because... yeah, like it's just so, I mean, I get it. Like I feel it though. Like I do feel like, I don't think I would ever feel that for a spouse, but I have felt that for like animals. There have been times when like my
Okay.
cats or other animals have like impeded me and they
Uh-huh.
kind of annoy me. So like I could possibly like see how like it could be more like with kids or animals where it's like they don't
Isn't that
really,
worse?
yeah, like where they don't really know, like I don't know, like for some reason with when it's an animal, it's almost like a little more annoying in my opinion. Like
Uh-huh.
I think it could be. Yeah, I mean I do resonate with the emotion though. Like the feeling of I just want some peace. And I think that
Oh
is
yeah.
just a natural human emotion. Like if you want to do something and then you feel like you are walled in or you're being distracted. But yeah,
It was just funny to me how over the top it was. It's like a over the top version of something that's probably kind of relatable to a lot of
and that's
creative type people.
And that's where it's like I can imagine in the novel, like I haven't read to that part of the novel, but like I imagine in the novel it was way more, it was written more clearly. Like
Or
specifically
subtly.
like yeah, well not subtly but with more like gravity. Cuz I think just like how Nicholson performed it was just a little too over the, like he's just
Oh
straight
god, I
up
love it
like
though.
ripping her apart.
I love when he just tells her, he's just when he's just like, why don't you start by getting the fuck out of here? I'm like, oh my god. That is just so harsh.
Yeah,
So
it
harsh.
feels like a monologue. Like I can't imagine telling even like my worst enemy that. But oh my god. And then like the thing that I really love that like a refraction of this scene is the scene where Shelley Duvall finds his
Oh yeah.
and
Classic.
that scene hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I felt things, and this is where I had the Lynchian moment of I'm applying my own emotional feelings to this because so this is like a direct response to that. So like imagine, because like you said, like you've felt that, we've all felt that to some lesser level of hopefully not cussing out anyone,
Right.
to where like you feel like you don't have control of your time or your life. And I think this scene where Shelley Duvall finally finds his writing, and it's all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Over and over and over and over again in different formats, in poetry and prose and fucking script format and fucking weird blobs, and just beautiful. Like visually, it is shot so beautifully. It's stupid. Like why is this a beautiful shot? Like it's literally just
Hmm.
a hand and piece of paper. But anyways, that moment for me, like spiraled feelings in me to where I felt, and this is something I felt a lot. I mean, I'm feeling it all the time lately for the past like 2 years. Like, is anything I'm doing actually worth the time? And for some reason, and this is like the weird subconscious thing that Kubrick and Lynch, I guess, is do with these like broad strokes ideas, is like there's the obvious like joke and kind of horror of this guy's just been writing the same fucking thing. He's fucking crazy. But there's the deeper emotional thing that like spurred in me, which is everything I'm writing, is everything I'm doing
Just like that.
absolutely worthless and as stupid as me writing the same sentence over and over again? Like, is everything that I'm doing, like, am I just repeating myself? Am I talking about the same thing? Am I expressing the same thing? Is all my work and all my art absolutely meaningless? And if you like
Hmm.
think hard enough about it, like if you think hard enough about anything, you can actually get very doom and gloom. And like
Yeah.
I reached that point watching this movie where I was like, "Oh my god, like everything I write to someone else could look as stupid as that." Like this is what he wrote for 6 months. This is what he wanted time away for. This is what he yelled at me for. This is what he
Yeah.
like left me for. This is what like all these emotions just like spiraled onto me. And I was like, "Wow." Like I had to pause the movie and just like sit and think, because it was just like I don't know, it's just like such a weird image and feeling that scene made me feel. I was gonna ask you if it did it make you feel any of that, or was it just
Uh,
how the actual scene just played out, which was the
no,
horror?
I didn't get any of that existential dread. That's interesting. Yeah, no, the main thing I remember from that scene is the second half of it, which is just my favorite. That Jack Nicholson, once he appears and just puts, yeah, just goes ham.
Yeah.
That's what I remember from that part. Oh, and how that scene starts with one of those cool over the shoulder shots where
Yep.
when he shows up, he's just like a shadow there. You see his crazy like Bozo the Clown hair in profile, like in the silhouette of it, lurking, watching her reading his insane typings.
Yeah.
And then the shot of her, the looking up at her face reading the papers. Like, yeah, there's so many cool shots like that in the movie that I get why you said reminds you of Wes Anderson, because like there's so many symmetrical shots of people, very symmetrical shots in the movie, and that's one that sticks out of her for some reason. And just lots of great close-ups. Stanley Kubrick's really good at that. Just really great close-ups of people's faces. So those things stand out.
Everything that he shoots is like perfectly symmetrical, and like you could just take a scene from this and take a scene from Wes Anderson, and that you put them side by side, and it's the same thing. The only thing that I noticed that Kubrick does in this film, I forgot the exact terminology for it. I think it's called like 1-point focus. But there's this idea of focusing and arranging a composition. Maybe you know because you're more into art, where lines collide. So like imagine you're shooting a hallway. The hallway descends into a point at the very end. If you have a line on a wall, it descends to where it meets, to where it almost makes a V in your perspective. So everything feels like it's winding down to a point. He does that in this film, like almost literally every shot. Even when like Danny's going down the hallway, the way the halls have these like lines throughout to like draw you in to the point. And then it starts over again. And that's something that I noticed that he does with a lot of sequences, a lot of scenes, a lot of ideas. Like everything is just like, there's this like weird subconscious imagery idea of everything. You're on a path, like you're on like you're on a train track and you're just going down and there's no stopping it. And this is with the hallways, with the carpets, with the floor, with the maze. Like everything feels like you are stuck on a track in a weird way. Like every time someone's moving, it feels like everything is surrounding them to where they can only move to one direction, like in the film. And that is interesting how he uses that. I don't know if he does that in any other films, but like even with like the opening, like you're on a road and you're just winding down a road that only feels like it has one way to go. Like it feels like you can't turn around as soon as this movie starts. And that is
that makes sense. That is, I guess it's just like a visual motif in this movie that like I'm scrolling through screenshots of the movie and I'm noticing that like there's a lot of like triangles, like that perspective thing, like where all the scenes are just like triangles. You could draw a triangle on top of it, like pointing to a perspective, you know, in the distance. Like that is cool. That's interesting.
So I guess I wanted to ask you about the maze, because that is a cool element.
Because that's it plays in it. I mean, that's related. It's all because that one track thing of like being stuck in like a hallway or like a maze is pretty much this entire movie. Did you like the maze scenes? Like
I did. One scene I didn't know was going to be in this movie is he's looking at a table. I don't know if this is a hallucination or not, but there's this big table of a prop maze, which I imagine because Kubrick had props of everything designed for this movie. The hotel, the maze, the cars, the people, the costumes, like everything was replicated on a very miniature scale. And he even had like little toy cameras. He would like drive around the miniature scale and then he would make it like he would like double the size and do the same thing over again and double that size and do the same thing again. Like the amount of craft that he does is insane. But I love how in the movie we see this little mini scale maze, and it gave me like hardcore Hereditary vibes, where that movie was like like brute force trying to like play this miniature scale life thing into the movie. And in this movie, just this one scene, like I thought this was just so genius, to where like he's looking at this maze and then I just imagine he's imagining his family in the middle of the maze, because you see him like kind of walking around and it almost feels like this whole thing is a game to him. You know, like he feels like he's the master and he could just like pluck them away and throw them away or just squish them with his finger. Like it gave me like I just started imagining all these things like as the scene was happening. Like, oh, he's going to squish them. He's going to like flick them off. He's like going to flip the table. And like none of this happened. And there's no logical place in my brain where I thought it was going to happen. But like emotionally, I was feeling those emotions of like dread. And that's something that I've talked about how this film plays with like the empty space or whatever. But I think it's also like how this film plays with the pacing. Like he lingers on shots long enough to where, at least for me, in my perspective, like I started imagining worser scenarios happening. And it was almost like the movie was trying like to dig at me. Like, what are your dark desires? You know, like what would you do in this situation? And like, what do you think would be the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
But I love that. And I love, I mean, the final chase in the maze is a hallmark moment.
Yeah. Yeah. The lights, like the lighting. God, the colors in this movie are just so, every scene is a very strong primary color.
Yeah.
Like the maze is just it's so blue. For some reason that stuck out to me this time. I think it was switching back and forth from the really blue maze to like a bright red room that Wendy was running into. Yeah, it's so cool. The gold room, you know, and like it's God, the red, gold, green, like there's weird greens, like the bathroom, that room 237, and then there's another like hallway that's just weirdly green. But yeah, it's cool use of colors.
And again, like this is just, like I say this every time we watch a movie shot on film, but holy shit. Like no digital camera can make this look how it looks. And this is like one of the main reasons I want to watch Dr. Sleep, because from my understanding, they recreated the hotel 1-to-1, like literally 1-to-1. They had the blueprints, they had the miniatures, everything is exact. And I just want to see a digital version of this hotel, because I imagine they shot that movie on digital. The way film plays with light in this movie, that is insane. Like every window is blown out in this weird blue hazy kind of way. And like and like you're saying, even like the exterior shots, like there's always like this weird halo effect around lights and around people, and like with the ending specifically. And I don't know, like I just swear there's just something about film. Like I just don't, like I can't wrap my head around why we stopped as a film society. Like, why are we suffering when this looks so beautiful? Like I would be okay if someone could imitate film 1-to-1. Like if someone would just make a film look like this, then I'd be okay. But like digital looks like shit. Like there's no actual quality to it. Like there's nothing that makes it look like an aesthetic choice. You know, like it just looks bland. It looks like TV. It just looks crisp. Like you just see like the edges of pixels. Where this, like it just feels like a smear. Like it feels like this perfect paintbrush smear.
A painting, yeah.
Yeah, and God, like
I think it depends. You know me, like I've revealed that I am totally blind to film versus digital. I have no idea when I'm watching a movie most of the time, unless it's super obvious. But I feel like it should always be, and ideally it would just always be an artistic choice, like that you choose film if you're making a certain kind of movie, and you choose digital if you're making a different type of movie.
But what is the positive of digital? That's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, what aesthetically makes it look good?
Can't you do more to manipulate the image, like the colors and stuff with digital? I mean, it's just easier to like manipulate like the color palette and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like,
I don't know. I feel like it works well in like sci-fi movies or things like that. Certain genres, digital makes sense and kind of just makes sense.
Yeah, we'll have to. That would be an interesting like special episode topic. Would be like you pull up what you think is the best digital looking film of all time, and I pull up best looking film of all time, and then we just kind of compare and contrast. Because like I don't know, I just like there's something like Tarantino started a film podcast recently where he watches old movies, and he I don't know if it was on this podcast or in an interview that I heard. I think it was this podcast. Maybe it was an interview. But he said, the funny thing about digital is that it's literally trying to imitate film. It's like you literally have a new technology that all it's trying to do is copy the past. And then he said, like, if that doesn't tell you that film is the better alternative, then like what else is there? You know, it's just insane. It'd be like if all digital painters just tried to imitate a canvas.
Okay, here's one. What about, do you like the movie Her?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, like that was shot on digital, and that's like one of those movies that I would say that's like the look of that. It makes total sense. Like it has a smooth look to it that I guess sci-fi for some reason I think of that just looks really good with digital, like smooth robots and movies that have a lot of like CGI and stuff like that. I don't know. It works sometimes.
Yeah.
To create a certain kind of aesthetic, smooth, futuristic aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll have to compare that with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Then I think the
Oh,
only
yeah.
in my opinion, I think digital makes sense for documentaries and for anything based on reality. So like I think Roma was a good digital film because it's based on someone's life. Like I think if it's like trying to imitate reality, I think it's cool. But if you're telling a fictional story, even with her, like I love that. I mean, that's in my top 5. I still think that film would have looked so much better on film.
Huh.
So much better, in my opinion.
Well, we'll have to save that one for another day.
uh, but I mean, just to get back to this movie, the that final chase sequence, I wanted to talk about one, the intercutting. I did not like. This is like when I told you I watched the movie, I kind of lied. The last 20 minutes of this movie, I fell asleep.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How you? I swear, every there's no movie that can keep you awake.
I fell
Insane.
asleep, but the next morning I watched the last. I rewinded like 15 minutes, and I watched the last 30 minutes. And wow, this movie, in my opinion, degraded the last 20 minutes. Like it totally. I've heard this in a couple podcasts that I listen to. Like Kubrick does not know how to end his movies. I don't know if that is a trend of his. But like this ending was totally a wet ending.
Fart.
Yeah, it was a wet fart ending. I was shocked at how bad of an ending this movie had. I was like, "What? No way!" And then the credits started rolling, and I was like, "This cannot be the end of this movie. Like, this is wow." But just leading up to that, the intercutting I did not like. It just didn't make any sense. Like emotionally, why Wendy was like seeing all these things, and then why. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. But the one thing I did like that I wanted your opinion on, I thought it was so smart that Danny, I guess he had the idea to like re-walk his steps to like hide in a bush. Like I thought that was genius. Again, this kid is smart, so this only leads more into the hypothesis theory that we have of the sexual abuse, because I think he is a very smart, cunning child, as we've seen throughout the entire film. But I love that moment. I love the play with that whole sequence and the drama. I loved Jack Nicholson's performance, how he's running and grunting and like just screaming
and yelling,
yeah.
Darner!
Yeah, and it becomes like guttural. Like this is one of the points where, see, like I wish all his anger was more guttural, because I think when someone is killing someone else or killing someone they hate, like their family or whatever, like let's just dive into the darkness of that kind of imagination. I don't think you would be having fun. Like you would be very angry and you would be screaming in a guttural way. Where like to backtrack to the staircase sequence where Wendy hits him across the head, like I don't know, I don't think he would be having fun doing it. Like as an actor, it looks like he's having fun. Where this final sequence, Nicholson is totally like just deranged in a way.
Yeah.
So what did you think about all those things that I said?
Yeah. No, I agree. He is very, very animalistic, and it's like it's cool because you know what I thought this time? The main thing that I thought is like how pathetic. Like he's a loser. Like he failed at his this. Like he absolutely failed. The ghosts didn't trust him. Didn't think he was. Almost didn't. I feel like they didn't really believe in him, and he did not deliver the goods. He didn't kill anyone. Well, wait, he killed Halloran, but I mean, just not his mission was a failure, and so I was just overwhelmed with how pathetic his character was at the end. That he went insane. His all the ghosts are influencing him, really trying to get him to kill his family. He doesn't kill his family. He just freezes to death outside the hotel. I thought that was funny.
What did you think about that cut?
The cut to him. Yeah. I always laugh. I always laugh, but do you think it was intended to be funny? Like, cause how could it not be funny? Like, how could it not be seen as funny?
It is the weirdest choice of this movie. Like I could never give this movie a 10 out of 10 because of that.
Oh, well, no, that doesn't bother me. 10 out of 10.
I found it offending because it was just so bad. Like, and that's just like I've seen.
I think that
I've seen that screenshot before, like on memes and stuff, and I thought maybe
Yeah.
he would get like killed and then his body was left somewhere and then he would freeze like that. But to just cut, like smash cut to that face.
I the only thing I can
Ugh.
think is like it's supposed to be pathetic. I don't know. It's just like playing into how pathetic he is at the end, how
Mhm.
pathetic his character is. Like what a buffoon. Like he just fails, and yeah. So maybe just Stanley Kubrick was just thinking about that, and just. But also, it is like it does make you think that he just kind of loses interest at a certain point in his movies. By the end, he just kind of loses
Yeah.
interest, and or he's all out of steam. Maybe he uses all of his creative energy, and then he gets to near the end of the movie and he's just like, ugh. And so he
Yeah.
just does, he's just tired, and just to humor himself, he does something funny like that.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, 2001 A Space Odyssey has one of the most like, one of the greatest endings of all time of a movie. So I don't think he's
Okay.
totally always like that. Or Full Metal Jacket has a really impactful ending as well. So no, I don't think it's like across the board, but
Yeah.
yeah, this one he seems to have gotten bored by the end.
I found like it's truly one of the worst scenes I've ever seen. In my life.
Well, wait a second. Whoa. Wait a second. I take back everything I just said about that, because I totally forgot about the last shot in the movie,
Yeah,
which
that
I
isn't
think
the
kind of
last shot.
seals it all together. So no. I don't know. Yeah, if like that was the last shot of the movie, then I would agree with what all that things we just said about the ending. But no, like the final shot of the movie is infamous in like a good way, like a he leaves you on a thought provoking kind of thing, like a little mind bending. Like what the heck does that mean? So no,
Yeah.
I still think the ending to this movie is solid.
See what I would have done? Because we see him fall to the ground while he's still in the mid chase of Danny. And I would have shot like a different shot of that, of him falling, and he's on the ground, and like us see him freeze to death. And like him stop breathing and just die, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
cut to that infamous last shot of the painting, not the painting, the photograph of the July 4th, whatever ball of whatever
Uh-huh.
time period. And that would have been like, okay, we get that he's going to die. Like he died there at night. It was just so weird to cut to the day to show him with that face. Like I'm telling you, his face is not.
No, that is definitely a funny face. Like
Yeah, like there's a reason it's a meme, you know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just it's so heightened. Like they could just lower his eyebrows, remove the
I wonder
smile.
if we ever talked about that. I wonder if there's anywhere that Stanley Kubrick ever talked about that shot specifically.
Yeah. Oh God, I hate that shot so much. But yeah. But yeah, talking about that final photograph, yeah, I love that little loop around. That again offers more credence to the like Native American thing, the cyclical nature of the
History
colonialism.
passing
Yeah,
down.
history
Yeah.
passing on. His smile. Like I think his smile in that was the perfect ending, because in that
Yeah.
photograph he's the only person truly like smiling, like that grin.
Right at the camera.
Yeah. And he's like perfectly in focus. I love that.
Yep.
But
Looking demented.
because I guess like, so what do you think? Like the kid and the mom just escaped, safely. Like they made
Yeah.
it down the mountain, and
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you thought differently, or that it was open to interpretation?
I don't
thought
know.
it was definitely yeah.
Yeah.
That it's very like economical, the ending. It's
Yeah.
just like they run out, they get in the car, they go away, he dies,
the thing,
and that's it.
one thing I didn't like is we have, what is his name?
Halloran, Dick
yeah.
Halloran.
Yeah, he comes like, and this is like a writing problem that I have. I mean, it's also kind of like a little racial problem, which I guess fits with the theme that we're talking
It fits
about.
with the theme.
the
Yep.
American colonialism. Like the only character that dies is a black character. But
Mhm.
I find it weak in writing to where we probably get like 10 minutes of his transit to this location,
Wow, I love that.
and then like
Or
a
I just-
30-second of him entering the hotel, and then he's dead.
I
in,
just
like-
thought that was it's so funny how it's hilarious, like the build up in a dark way, of course.
Yeah.
Just like how funny it is that he goes through so much trouble, and yeah, there's every scene with him as he calls and calls, and then we see him in the airplane, we see him taking off, we see him landing, we see him in the airport, we see him renting or getting the car, we see him driving. It's like, oh my god, and then he just gets immediately axed in the chest. Yeah, it feels very on purpose. Like this is just like how sad this is.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, he went through so much trouble, but that's not gonna. And so yeah, it makes sense as a metaphor, I guess, if you're thinking about it really like simplistically.
Yeah.
He went through. He did a lot of work for nothing. He didn't get anything for all of his effort.
I guess just as a writer, it felt like a week out. Like it felt like we need to get these characters out of this location so we can leave the thread that Danny and the wife survived.
It's just a nice shock. Oh, you mean them leaving?
Because he brought that like truck thing, the ice.
Oh, that
truck
too.
thing.
Yeah, that's true. It serves a good purpose. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he had to bring that so they could escape. And then
No, but I think that's the weak part is like you literally had this entire character to just bring this truck thing.
No, but I think it's also for that dramatic purpose too of that. And it's a nice little twist, or like it's just a nice unexpected thing that probably if you didn't when you did it shock you like when you were watching it, or were you just like disappointed?
I was pissed. I was like, that's stupid. Because, because here's the other thing. This character has The Shining. And like Danny is a very intelligent person. Like, I expected the same from this character. And, like, why would you walk into this place, like, announcing yourself in that way?
Yeah, he's
then, like, why
yelling it out.
Like, I wish there would at least been some sort of fight or conflict with Jack. Like, maybe some use of the Shining power, like him hearing him. Or him hearing his thoughts. I don't know. I just wanted some sort of play. Like, I would have at least milked the scene, is I guess what I'm saying. Because also, like, I don't know. I don't think biologically you would die from a chest to the, like, an axe to the chest in that kind of wound. Like, I think you would kind of do something more. Like, I kind of wanted this movie to be way more brutal. Like, I was expecting some actual, limbs cutting. And then
how it was filmed though did make it seem really brutal. I don't know, the way there's like the back and forth shots of like him just like pushing it in further. Like, I thought that was really well done. Like, just I was like, oh God, I'm like feeling the pain of like what that would feel to have like an axe embedded in your chest, and he's just like pushing it like as they spin around, and then he falls down. It's like, oh man. So I thought that was the way they were acting. Like, the acting was really well done, and editing. Well, so I think it was fine. It was worth it to have that in there.
But the other thing I want to note on with his character is his apartment, or I guess his room with the paintings.
That was so striking. Yeah, like that it's so funny. Like, this time I was watching, I was like, what the heck? Like,
yeah,
it's such a obvious, like, you're supposed to laugh at it, I guess, or just like be like, what the heck is this? His pictures are just it's so prominent, like it just shows us it's very symmetrical, and like, and then you see, it's a zoom out, it's a slow zoom out, so it's like a slow reveal to this ridiculous picture he has hanging right above his bed, and then there's the reverse shot that there's one on the opposite wall, of a nude, a nude female. With a huge afro. I love it.
I loved it. It felt like a very positive, intense, like Afro love kind of it felt like feminine empowerment in a way. Like, I can get how some people would like laugh.
You could read it the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it kind of goes into the like using people as viewing people as objects, like objectifying people. I don't know.
I felt like, I felt the opposite, where it was just very empowering. And I was like, oh, this guy is hardcore, which is awesome. Like,
this guy.
Like, in Alabama, I don't know if you've ever gone to any of these in Alabama, but there's like flea markets in Alabama. And I went to one in this place called Bessemer, Alabama. Yeah. And there's a lot of like cool artists that sell paintings here, and there are a lot of like hardcore Afro like love centric kind of paintings, and like I've seen, like, I swear I've seen a painting like that's literally that
like
painting. Where it's just a nude black woman with a big afro, and it's just so powerful and striking and strong, and there's like no like, and it's just completely nude. Like, you see everything. I don't know. I just always remember as a kid, I would walk by those and be like, wow. Like, that is a naked woman, like, it was just shocking as a child that it'd just be in public, and that was a thing. So, like, seeing it in this movie, I thought that was really cool, and I felt like it was a cool little, I don't know if Kubrick meant that as a tribute or if it was a joke or whatever, but I found it kind of striking and beautiful in a way.
I guess I'm just thinking of the way the whole rest of the movie is so negative about humanity. I'm just like reading it negatively. I don't know.
Yeah, but the other thing we got to talk about, because I kind of hinted at this in the review, is which this is the striking thing that I found out, which was the Guinness World Record most takes for a scene in all filmmaking history
Yeah.
is the scene between this character and Danny when they first talk about them sharing the shining ability, eating chocolate ice cream.
Wait, it's not the bathroom scene?
Mm-mm. The bathroom scene was like 90 takes. The hallway scene where they're walking up the stairs and his wife finally clubs him in the head, that was 128 takes. And
Oh
then
my
this
God.
scene, I think I might have the number wrong, is 148 takes. To the
Wow.
point to where this they're cried. I think
Yeah.
I think it was like post 60 take. He started crying and he asked Kubrick, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what are we doing here?
Oh,
And then
man.
Kubrick just responded, I'll let you know when we have it.
Yeah, that's
So-
kind of bad. This is like the dark side of Kubrick, though, because it's like, was that really necessary? What number take did they actually use in the movie?
I
you
mean,
know?
like, just think logically. Like, 148 times you got to do something. Like, I
Yeah.
literally cannot imagine me doing anything 148 times. Like, I think people do not understand
how long that would take.
like how
Yeah.
long it takes to reset a scene. Like there's usually
Yeah.
like at least a 15-minute turnaround. Like, all right, we got to make sure all the lights are good. We got to reset the sound. We got to make sure everyone's recording properly. Okay, is the makeup okay? Is the costume okay? Okay, is set's okay? We need to refill the ice cream cup. All right, who has the ice cream? Someone get the ice cream. All right, what about the film and the mag? All right, we got to check that. All right, is Kubrick's good? You need water. You need coffee. Okay, how is the kid doing? Okay, his hair is messed up. We need to brush his hair. Continuity, come over here and check this out, check that out.
Uh-huh.
Like it is mind-numbing to reset a scene. And just to
That
like
scene,
and
I mean, it is kind of mesmerizing. Like this time I watched it, I for some reason that scene stuck in my head as being kind of awkward or like badly acted in the past when I'd viewed it. Like the first time I saw it, for some reason, I always thought that was a weird scene. Like it kind of stood out as weird or awkward, but maybe that's why, because it's that. But this time when I was watching it, I was like, for some reason, it's very. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the scene that was the most
Yeah.
takes, but it was very mesmerizing. Like the way they were talking to each other, it seemed like they really knew each other really well and were connecting. So maybe that's what he was trying to capture. It was just like that they're very connected, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so they've got to do that scene that many times to feel that way.
My problem with my little brief research with Kubrick is that he did not give any direction. He wouldn't tell his actors what to do differently.
Yeah.
And like from
He just
my
wanted them
understanding,
to do it naturally.
Yeah, and just do it 100 times. Like from my understanding, like Jack Nicholson was the only one that got like real direction because they were actually like buddies, and he would be like, "Yeah, amp it up a little bit." But like everyone else, it was like, "I'll let you know when we get it right." So like,
Which
imagine
isn't-
you're just like
yeah.
shooting in the dark. You're just like, "Well, do I go more energy, less energy? Am I supposed to cry more? Am I supposed, like?" And like supposedly
Yeah.
Chevy Duvall got the brunt of this, where to the point to where he had a rule no one could on set could compliment her, no one could give her any positive feedback, no one could give her any compliments. He
Yeah.
never gave her any compliments or gave her feedback. He would constantly berate her, saying that she was the worst part of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, like the abuse was just like everywhere. And
Yeah. And I almost I'm like almost tempted to say that in that for her specifically it paid off, but it is not worth it, I guess.
Yeah.
Not worth that. But you can kind of tell,
yeah,
that she's very frazzled and exhausted.
I can imagine she's probably like traumatized from this filming. But one thing that I wanted to bring up is like another director, the only director that I can think of that has imitated Kubrick in this idea of multiple takes is probably like David Fincher.
Mm-hmm.
He's known for 100 takes plus. I guess one thing that I found surprising is that no one has beaten this like 148 take.
Well,
Scene.
yeah, because it's not ethical. Probably like actors guilds and unions. Probably there's rules against that now. You know, you aren't even allowed to do that. Probably.
Well, I just imagine
abuse.
it'd be so much easier in the digital age because it'd just
Yeah.
be, you're just
True.
rolling. But yeah,
Probably that no one's enough of a psychopath like Stanley Kubrick to actually do it and try it.
yeah, I don't think anyone could get away with it. It's just like, I guess back in this time period, and then also just there's that idea of like someone being a mastermind, a genius, and you're just like, he's a genius. I just got to keep doing it.
Right.
But one thing I wanted to talk in much detail, and I think this is the best scene of the entire film. I think this is the powerhouse performance scene we kind of talked about a little bit, which was Jack Nicholson walking up the stairs, berating his wife, and, she has the baseball bat. And I just love, like, the dialogue here. I love the performances here. I love the emotion. Like, this felt like the most real event in the entire film is this, like, woman, like, I don't know what to do. Like, you're, like, literally putting me against the wall, and I'm scared for my life because I don't know what you're going to do. And then he's just, like, giving her, like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your fucking head in. Like, and that over-the-top dialogue, and it's just, like, God, it's just, like, I haven't seen this in my personal life, but I've seen, like, Cops, and, like, I've seen, like, other weird shows where there are people, like, strung out on drugs, and they're just, like, fucking chasing their family members or wives or children or other police officers down, and they're, like, saying this psychotic shit to where they're like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, and, like, all this kind of shit. And it's like, you don't want to hurt someone. Like, as the person receiving that, you don't want to hurt them, but then it feels like, if I don't stop you, you're going to kill me. And it's like that fear of, like, I don't know. And I think Shelley Duvall, the way she reacts to him, like, there's a famous quote that acting is reacting. And, like, she is doing all the reacting in the scene as she's walking up. And then, like, that's the other thing. Like, I was just thinking, like, technically and logically, like, walking upstairs backwards is so difficult. It's so fucking hard. There was a shot in, like, a short film that I did one time where I was walking upstairs backwards with the camera because I was filming an actor, walk up. And I swear to God, like, I gave up. Like, I gave up shooting the shot because it was I couldn't focus on just shooting. Like, I couldn't focus on looking through the camera because I thought I was just going to fall. Like, walking backwards is just such a hard thing to do. And she's walking backwards upstairs with a baseball bat, crying, screaming at Jack Nicholson. And it just, like, wrapping my head around. And then they had to do that 128 times.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that, really. Like, how long that would take.
And, like,
I just love... Yeah, her acting, and that scene is really, it's just so sad. Like there's the line that stuck out to me was where she just says, I'm very confused.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think I said, oh, out loud, because I'm like, oh man. And that made her character make sense to me because she's just such a nice person. Like, she doesn't want any of this happening. Like, she's just so innocent and nice, and so it's so sad that she finally has to, like, face all of this. Oh God. But
and
she makes it out.
Oh my God, there's a podcast I listened to with 3 women talk about this film. Too Scary didn't watch. I think I've talked about them before with the Fresh review. They talked about this movie. And they were just talking about how they also agreed that she is the strongest character in this film, even though she is written as the weakest character in this film. And this is, like, something even Stephen King brought up, like, this film is sexist because the female character is the weakest portrayal of a woman ever on cinema. I think it's, like, something he said, like, he just hated it. Because in the book, I think she's a much stronger character. But these women in this podcast talked about it, and they were like, there are women who are in this situation where it's like, you're scared, and then it's also like the embarrassment that you picked a sick, disgusting husband. And, like, what do you do now? Like, what do you do, in the 1980s? What do you do? Like, if you don't have a job, you don't have certain things, like, there's that psychological fear, and then with someone as toxic and as, like, fucking abusive as, like, Jack Nicholson's character in this movie. Like, it'd be, like, of course she's confused. She's like, I can't really run away because everything's snowed in. Like, I just imagine in that moment, like, as a human being, you're trying to process everything. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I get out of this situation with this person? And, I think
worst case scenario.
That is, like, that scene is one of the scenes where I was like, okay, this is landmark performance. And then also, like, that original scene with the child doctor, counselor person or whatever, where she's smoking the cigarette, and just, like, the simple, like, handshake, like, her hand is shaking as she's, like, lying about Oh, it was nothing. He was just like drunk and like he hasn't drank in 6 months. And the way her eyes like flutter, like when you lie.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's just beautiful, beautiful performance. One other thing I got to bring up that I haven't brought up yet is the intro sequence with the title credits playing over the imagery. God, that's something I've only seen with Paul Schrader. And wow, I wish more films would do that. Like this film, like really had a way, like that introduction sequence of this movie just really set me in the mindset and the cadence and the pace of what we were going to experience. And I think more films should do that. Like let me know what I should be anticipating. You know, like
let me know. Please let me know very strongly with like, it's such an intense feeling, like that music. Really, it's mainly, well, no, it's both. It's the music and those insane the helicopter shots. Yeah, man, that's cinema right there. Just that intro. One more question, wrapping back to your intro. What is Tony exactly? Like what? Because I understand The Shining, the power, but like, is Tony? When I was watching it this time, I was like, is Tony like a separate entity that gives him the Shining power, or what is Tony? Or is Tony just a manifestation of his abuse, you know, kind of like an alternate ego to like help him cope? Or is Tony connected? Because he tells Halloran about Tony, and it seems like Halloran like kind of recognizes that, or it makes sense to him, but he doesn't really say anything. So what did you think about that?
That is the part that confused me, because I don't know. I haven't read the book, but I doubt that part's in the book. You've read the book.
I think it is. It is? Actually. I think it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think Tony's in the book.
Okay. Well, just I guess separating it from the book, just for the movie, I don't know. Like, I guess it has to be the coping mechanism for him to, like, if we're going with the sexual abuse trauma, it'd be that. It'd be the equivalent of the exorcism demon inside of the young girl.
Yeah.
Is what I imagine, like that disassociation of whatever fucked up shit's going on. But yeah, I don't know. I was actually listening to a podcast where this guy was like, yeah, I had an imaginary friend, and 15% of children in America have imaginary friends, and it's normal. And I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
I've
always heard that, but I've never known anyone in person that had I never had
me either.
An imaginary friend. But then I've also heard that people sometimes just forget, like they have one and then they forget about it, and their parents tell them, oh yeah, like when you were a toddler or whatever, you had an imaginary friend. And so I don't know, maybe it's just something that happens early on and most people forget about it. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, I think Danny's the character Danny's middle name is Tony or Anthony or something, right?
Oh, okay.
So I think that's where the Tony thing comes from. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's something I heard. But I don't know. I have no theories or ideas on that. The only thing I have to say is that I loved how the kid performed it. I love his little voice where he got all like like it's such a perfect voice, and it's not like too over the top. Like it feels like a kid doing it, and then his little finger just like looking like a little worm. Just so
and his
simple
description of like that Tony lives in his throat, and you know he hides in his stomach. Like that's such a interesting description. Or explanation that makes sense.
And from my understanding, in one podcast that I listened to, this kid was selected only because he came to the audition and he had this little character and he did that voice.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what got him the role out of like the thousands of kids that tried to get this role. And then like another thing about that kid performer, like I loved his reactions, like the way he looked shocked. And the way he would always like flip his head back around. Like there's that moment when he first like looks at 237. He gets off his bike and he looks at the door, gets back on his bike, and then he just keeps turning his head. And I guess because his hair is like long enough, it flips. And like he does that so much. Like every time he's scared or shocked, he's always turning his head back to the core of his fear. Even when he's like being escorted out into the window and like being pushed out with the mom, like his head is always like turning around, like he feels like something's coming. And I think subconsciously that's feeding into like his shining ability. Like he knows something's about to happen, but maybe he consciously doesn't. And I think I don't know if like Kubrick was that aware of or told him to do that, but like I just in every scene where he's in danger or he fears something, he is constantly turning back as if he is anticipating something to happen that hasn't happened yet. And I think that's super awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never noticed that specific the thing about him. That's cool.
And then his like the other thing that I thought of is there's a scene where he hides in like an oven thingy with all the like silverware or whatever of the kitchen. And for a second I was like, holy shit, this is what inspired Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Because I thought Jack was gonna like hunt him down in this like fucking like metal reflective stuff. And
he walks past it, but then he just keeps walking. Yeah, that's a cool little parallel too. Mm-hmm. Oh God, tiny little thing. I don't know why I feel compelled to mention this, but like the bartender guy, Lloyd the bartender, is a great just secondary like character that I noticed this time. What makes him creepy is that he never blinks, and like I wonder if that was definitely like a direction, like just don't blink, like don't, or maybe the actor just did it. But I thought, man, that's such a cool subtle thing you could do to like just make yourself really creepy, like and ghost like. He never blinks. Yeah, and yeah, super creepy.
Wow,
really ominous. And this is such a good like like just in general something we didn't talk about is like, well, we did mention it, but ghosts, like it's so hard to make ghosts genuinely like scary or creepy in movies, or you just don't see very many good examples of that. But man, this movie has such a good way of showing ghosts and making them creepy, like you were talking about, just subtly like appearing and disappearing when other people walk into the room, or not blinking, or just the way they hold themselves, or they need to there should be more good ghost movies out there that try things like this.
It's not over the top. There's not like a wispy, like most people who do a ghost scene, they make the characters somewhat transparent, or there's like some ethereal smoke around them, or the lighting is all off. Like this felt he was just like, well, what if I just shoot them like real people, and then when someone else walks in, they disappear. It's like it's easy as that. It reminds me of I don't know if anyone's gonna get the tying element here, but The Last Jedi. The way Ryan Johnson shoots the like mental Jedi telepathic communication between Rey and
that sort of weirdly makes sense to me. What a weird connection.
I forgot the character.
It's like subtle.
Because like all he does is just shoot them in their own settings, and you're just cutting between them. And like when you watch it, it makes 1000% sense. And in this movie, it felt the same exact way, where it's like, I understand this person's not real because I saw this person enter this room and no one was there, and now I see them there. And then when someone else enters the room, now they're not there. Like, and it's as simple as that. It's as simple as just cutting to a different shot. It doesn't have to have a smoky element or whatever, like sound effects or visual effects to mask it, because we do it subconsciously, and it feels creepier that way. Like it feels like, oh my God, this guy's fucking insane.
It's like perfect, like minimalism, just doing the bare, just psychologically what would create that creepy effect without any special effects. That is so cool.
Because oh my God, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I wanted to bring this up and I had totally forgotten. But I have actually seen a ghost in my life.
Okay. All right. Tell me about it.
Single ghost. I was living with this lady. She worked at a construction, or she owned her own construction company, and I was just like an employee. And she would always talk about how her house was built on a Native American, a burial site as well.
Burial site like this?
Yeah. And it was in Montevallo, Alabama. And I remember like every morning she'd wake up at like 4 a.m., start doing her whatever, getting her company shit together. And I would wake up around 5 a.m. and I would do this like morning workout every morning. And I always had to keep the doors open in my, like she gave me a little room that was like facing the living room. And I would have to keep my doors open because she had cats and dogs, and they loved coming into my room because it was their hangout room before I moved in. So the door would always be open. So I'd be doing my morning workout, which was just like push-ups, sit-ups, and like crunches or whatever the hell. I was doing my sit-ups, and like if just imagine this is like a film shot, like POV, you're seeing through my eyes. I'm leaned back. I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm doing a sit-up. And then as I'm sitting up towards the door, which is completely open.
Yeah.
She's in the kitchen. Dogs are in the living room just lounging around. And I go back down. I look at the ceiling. Come back up. Look at the doorway. Go back down. Look at the ceiling. I come back up, and there's a man standing in the doorway, leaned against the door frame, like halfway in the room, halfway out the room, with this lumberjack jacket, like this thick wool, like I can't even describe, like it was just like this, like it just looked so old, like it looked like the old settler, like if they had that lumberjack kind of pattern jacket, and he had an axe over his shoulder, and he was looking at me, and he looked at me like he was about to cut my head off. Like he was disgusted with what I was as a person.
Oh my
and
God.
like my heart, like I seriously felt my heart like stop. I couldn't breathe, and I just like fell back. Like I just fell back, and I was looking at the ceiling, and it took me like literally an entire minute to like try to sit back up. So I was like, if I sit back up, that guy is still gonna be there. And I sat back up, and then the homeowner, the lady who owns this construction company, she was standing in the doorway, and she was looking at me. And then I leaned back up, and she was like, "You look like you saw a ghost." And I was like, "Yeah, there was this guy. Is there a guy in here? There was a guy with a fucking axe." And she was like, "Oh, you saw," and I forgot the name she said, but she's named this ghost, and it's like, "Yeah, he lives here." And, you know,
Oh my God.
I forgot to tell you about him. And then she just like walked off like nothing happened. And like this was the scariest, like it was, and I can't, like, it's just so weird. And I am someone who's never believed in ghosts. I don't believe in any like religious stuff or spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just ingrained in my brain as like the most horrifying moment of my life.
That's cool. I always envy people. When I was doing my teaching internship, the teacher that I did it with, she saw ghosts when she was a kid. Like her and her brother, she was talking about how they both saw these ghosts and like named them. Yeah, like it was a reoccurring thing in their house.
Wow.
And like the ghosts would move their furniture and stuff. So it's so interesting to hear people that experience that. I don't have any. I've never
What?
never had a close encounter. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
It's empty. Like I'm not. It's almost like a thing that I wish would happen, you know, at some point. But I mean, I've gotten spooked if I'm like alone in a house, you know, and you kind of feel like, okay, like, you know, sometimes you just get spooked. But like I've never seen an apparition, and you saw like a full body apparition.
Yep.
So that's like super rare and cool.
And the crazy thing is, when I was young, mother lived in we all lived in this trailer in Chelsea, Alabama. And there was one night where the door kept opening and shutting like hard, like it was windy. And I remember me and my brother went outside because we were like, oh, it must be like a storm. And there was just completely still night, no clouds. There was no wind, air pressure, nothing. And I remember we came back inside, shut the door, locked it, like literally locked it, bolt locked it. And it would open and shut. And it made no sense to it. And I remember me and him just like, we're like in a couch, just wrapped in blankets, like just like freaking the hell out. And I always thought like, well, I never saw a ghost. That wasn't real. There was something about that made that make sense scientifically. But then like later in my life, because I was like 22 when I saw this lumberjack guy.
Yeah.
And like it is, yeah, it's so weird. Like I constantly go back and like, all right, let me try to like logic this out of my memory, and I can never do it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Huh.
I mean, my skeptical, like, I have to say that I remember reading like a while ago that like a much higher percentage than you would think of the population has had an hallucination. Like our brains, just even people who do not have schizophrenia or anything like that and don't develop that later in life, like it was a really high percentage. I don't know how they probably did some kind of studies where they just pulled people of like auditory hallucinations and visual hallucinations, and it's like a way higher percentage than you would think of people who have experienced it at least once in their life where they absolutely saw something that was not there. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything visual, but like auditory. I mean, have you ever had the experience of where you for sure, like you heard a voice say like your name or something and you were completely alone in the house? I've had that happen.
No, I haven't had that happen. I would cry. I think the audio thing would freak me out more than the visual.
Oh, Yeah, interesting. No, I've had that happen. I feel like a couple of times where I was like,
Wow.
okay, someone just called my name. No one else is here.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
that was a little weird, but yeah, it's just like because it's like them calling my name, I'm kind of like, okay, that was just a brain fart. Like my brain just kind of, my brain just had a little fart there for a sec. But that's completely different than seeing like a full body apparition of something completely like disconnect, not like a person but like just a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's
Gosh,
different.
man. Okay, so officially, Cineverm's going to start a GoFundMe account. We're going to give
Ghost hunting?
Yeah, we're going to give David a ghost hunting trip around America. We're going to send him to
I would
all
love
the
to.
hot spots.
Honestly, yeah, I'd love to do that. I've watched the ghost hunting documentaries or whatever, and I've always thought that's cool. Like that'd be such a cool thing to do, and just to see if there's anything to it. If I ever experience anything like visual or whatever, would be cool. But
oh man,
yeah.
There is a lot of haunted places in Alabama, I think, and like Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Florida. Like the South is a very big hotspot for that stuff. So I'm surprised you haven't. Like, have you ever ventured to like one of those places, or you've just never?
No, I don't think I've been to specifically like a place that was supposed to be haunted. I don't know. I always wondered I've always, like, my granddad died when I was kind of young, and every time I'm at that house, like I always think to myself, because I'm there and like we spend our holidays there, so like I'm sleeping there and stuff, and I always think about that. I always think like it'd be so cool if I had some kind of like thing, because this would be the place for sure, because it was like a very sudden, like unexpected death, and like they were in the house, and I'm like, I always think about that would be the place if I were to have a ghost experience, but I've never had anything. And I'm like, oh man, I've had dreams. Honestly, that's been the closest thing, is like very specific dreams where after I wake up, I'm like, okay, I feel like I just had a connection. Like I had a friend in high school commit suicide, and then after that, like a few years after that, I had lots of dreams where he was in it, and it was like I knew he was dead in the dream, but he was talking to me and like telling me stuff, and I was like, yeah, like I've always thought about that. Like, there might be something to that, like some connection, some kind of shining.
Yeah.
That we get little glimpses past the veil every once in a while, but
oh man, that is
crazy.
Interesting. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense, the whole like idea, because like if our brains are capable of dreaming entire sequences when we're not conscious, like it's not outside of logic to think that same kind of mechanism of creation could happen when you are conscious. Those pathways are still there, so why wouldn't they be able to overlap? It'd be like opening two browsers simultaneously. Like it's just like a glitch kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then it gets weird when there's like people who like swear ghosts like open doors or drawers or fucking pantries and shit. That, or even like my experience in the trailer, like that door opening when it was bolted shut. Like it makes no logical sense, but I don't know. That's the kind of thing like I wish I could see now as an adult, and then be like, oh fuck, okay, this is real. Like that door was literally locked.
Yeah.
And it swung open.
Verified. I guess, is this canon for you? I ask hesitantly. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yes.
Finally.
So the final question is, is this canon? My vote is an absolute yes. Just on the technical field, I think it's like, this is like I always bring up Taxi Driver, because it's not a film that like I think I would want to revisit that much. This film I think I would want to revisit more than Taxi Driver, but I think this film just has an undeniable stamp on cinema history, with how it uses Steadicam, with how it shoots, the entire visuals of this film, the Easter eggs, the like over analyzing, just Kubrick's stamp on horror, Jack Nicholson's performance, the ideas and themes of this movie. Like I totally see the effects of this from like every horror film I've seen. From this has some sort of shining influence, I feel like, in so many ways. So yeah, I think it's canon. Even if I don't like, because I don't like a lot of the story elements, I think Jack's character is so weak, like emotionally, like there's no sympathy there, where I think you could have like dug into, like, how we kind of talked about, like him being a writer and him feeling like he didn't have time and being bothered by his wife or what, like those are elements I think any other filmmaker or a better writer could dig into and make us humanize with him to some sort of level, to where the disgusting craziness would feel even more gross. having seen someone we kind of sympathize with. So there are like weaknesses, but I still think just in cinema, like this is a piece of art that only film can do. And I think it's astonishing.
Agreed. Yeah, I gotta we gotta watch the rest of Kubrick at some point.
Oh my
Well, not
God.
not all of them, but I definitely want to show you. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Eyes Wide Shut,
Oh, yeah.
and A Clockwork Orange. Probably just those four are my faves. So it would be super interesting to see if your enthusiasm carries over to those as well.
I mean, if they have at least the visuals of this, I can't imagine them not being canon. And this is like where I think the other films, like, because I was trying to think back to like The Exorcist and all the other films we watched, and I'm like, there's something about this film that just feels so absolutely sure of itself. Like even the things I don't like Jack Nicholson's performance, like this film feels so confident in that element to where it feels like it chose that. You know, like it doesn't feel like a mistake that Nicholson is so hammy. And I think that's something that I think makes this canon. Like it is a very distinctive voice to where like The Exorcist like had some of those elements, but I don't think the entirety of it was fueled with this like level of commitment to the craft. And that's why I think this one's canon over like something The Exorcist or some of the other watches we've seen.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
Yeah. So I think that is going to conclude this episode of Cineverse. So thank you so much for listening. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review or rating with your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcast or on Spotify. And if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Cineverse.